all you degenerate sinners. Welcome to another Fundie Sunday. Today we have possibly the overall most pathetic of them all, Matt Powell. Everyone, give a round of applause. Yes, yes. Yes, well. Okay, yes. Well, I feel like it's been forever since we did evolution on this channel, but, you know, here we go. 10 of the craziest or dumbest theories of evolution. Well, I mean, right off the bat, the title is just dumb as hell. Evolution is a theory. These things that he's about to list off are not theories. They're hypotheses. Well, some of them. Why am I bothering already to correct this infinite dumbass? Okay. I guess let's just jump in.
This is Matt Powell from his
Let's adjust the speed correctly.
YouTube channel, Matt Powell Official. I don't know why he's got an official on the end of it, but there you go. Yes, Matt Powell is a young earth creationist, and he is an unbelievable moron and science-denying half-wit.
True.
He puts all his faith and trust in the Bible. Anyway, Matt, the floor is all yours.
Google says if you type in "when monkeys surf," feel free to just type that in if you want on your phone. I won't judge you. When monkeys surfed, these are the first things that pop up. Now, evolution literally...
Oof. He's looking a little rough these days.
When monkeys surfed, these are the first things that...
Not aging well, is he?
Pop up. Now, evolution literally teaches that monkeys, they had to get to South America somehow because they found fossils over there. So the only way that monkeys could have gotten to the United States from Africa was surfing. The monkeys that sailed across the Atlantic to South America.
Okay, it wasn't actual surfing. He's going to portray this, and the media uses this word to sound more appealing so that people will click on their articles. But they didn't actually surf on, definitely not surfboards, not even on logs. It was floating piles of, like, massive piles of debris. What is the hypothesis? Evolution does not teach this, though. This is just an explanation of how they got distributed to South America. Not really part of the theory of evolution, though.
America, BBC. Monkeys suddenly appeared in South America about 40 billion years ago. Unlikely though it may seem, they probably sailed there from Africa. Prehistoric monkeys traveled 900 miles between continents on rafts.
You know, surfing monkeys.
His entire argument, I know he's not finished, but his entire argument is just, that sounds funny, isn't it? That's not an argument. In fact, that's a fallacy, Mr. Powell. Not an argument. You need to come up. Why is that so ridiculous?
Surfing dinosaurs. It's perfectly plausible.
Yes, it is. And again, his only counter argument is, ha 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 ha.
Monkeys who sailed 900 miles across the Atlantic. Intrepid monkeys, according to scientists, made an improbable sea voyage from Africa to South America on a raft. Picture it, on a raft 34 million years ago. They're saying that the only way they could have got there is climbing on a little raft.
They all
Again, he's not actually citing any scientists or the sources, and he's getting incredulous people it's not a little raft. It would be a massive chunk of, like, dead trees and stuff. Those exist. And yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to some stuff.
Also find that dinosaurs crossed the ocean. This is what evolution teaches. This is new stuff. They always
It is not what evolution teaches.
tell me, Matt, stop making arguments from the creationists from the 90s. Well, those are great arguments that they made. But these are from...
No, not one creationist argument ever has been even close to a galaxy that's even within eye distance, seeing distance of light that's 100 billion miles away from anything even approaching a good argument. No creationist has ever done such a thing. Ever. But again, this is not what evolution teaches. This is one possible explanation and plausible explanation for the distribution of populations. But this is not the theory of evolution, which is how population traits change.
2020. This is from 2020. They just released this. Because Africa was isolated by the deep oceans at that time, duck-billed dinosaurs must have crossed hundreds of kilometers of open water, rafting on debris.
Oh, he neglects to read the rest of the sentence. Rafting on debris, floating, or swimming. You do know that there are animals that can swim? And they do long distance swimming? Oh, and that thing about lizards, reptiles, they don't have to eat very much. I don't know if anyone who's ever owned a reptile, anyone who's ever studied reptiles, you don't have to feed them much. They can just kind of eat and then float for a couple months and literally be fine. Their mammals burn a lot more calories than these critters. Although, some of them were shown to have warm blood, be warm-blooded. So, again, it's just one of many possibilities that we're looking at how they got distributed. And his entire argument is, heh, that's funny.
According to evolution theory.
Nope. This has nothing to do with evolution theory. This is just how populations get diversified or get spread out. That's not evolution theory. Dumbass.
They surfed there. The article literally says that the duck-billed dinosaurs must have crossed hundreds of miles of open water.
Guys, I wonder if that's what evolution actually says.
It isn't.
All I had to do was a simple Google search, and this was the very first thing that came up. Dinosaurs once crossed oceans. First duck-billed dinosaur fossil discovered in Africa. You know, Matt's right about that.
This is what they're...
Ooh. I'm sure that he didn't just cut off Rage saying something like, Matt's right about that. However, this is where Matt's getting it wrong. You can even tell. It sounds like he's going to continue with the statement. Listen.
They're saying
dinosaur fossil discovered in Africa. You know, Matt's right about that.
This is what they're saying, but
he clearly was about to continue. This is taken out of context, I have no doubt. But even so, yeah, you're right. The dinosaurs must have crossed the ocean. What's the problem?
They want to tell you that God's word is inferior.
It's not God's word, but the Bible, yes, it is inferior as a form of scientific knowledge to literally everything.
They want to tell you, oh, the Bible just doesn't have the answers.
It doesn't have scientific answers.
People like Matt Powell really pissed me off. The fact that he's going around and claiming that he's trying to rid the world of all these lies really irritates me. He dumbs it all down to make it sound stupid to his audience because...
Yep, that's exactly what he's doing. He's making it sound as ridiculous. He's using the word surfing, media words, things that are supposed to be sensational. He's not looking at really what the actual hypothesis is saying. And he's mischaracterizing it as this is what evolution is teaching as a fact, not just it's some conjecture from non-evolutionary practices.
It's a lot easier if you make something sound stupid to convince him it's wrong.
Yeah, calling it surfing is something to make it sound stupid or to make people click on it, not to have a serious discussion.
Or it's flawed.
Beards can really take a hit.
Okay, he's moving on now, but...
You know, Matt's right about that.
This is what they're saying, but they want to tell you that God's word is inferior. They want to tell you, oh, the Bible, it just doesn't have the answers.
People like Matt Powell.
Well, anyway, he says...
Theory. They surfed there. The article literally says that the duck-billed dinosaurs must have crossed hundreds of miles of open water.
That is correct, Matt. And you don't even have an argument. All you do is literally you say the hypothesis and then you laugh. And that's it. You offer nothing else. And guess what, Matt? You believe it too. That's the thing that I was telling you to wait for. You also believe this hypothesis. You have to. You believe that all the animals were rounded up onto one ship. See, I've just debunked Noah's Ark as much as you've debunked this hypothesis. But guess what? You also believe these animals must have crossed oceans on their own.
You hypocrite!
Yes, Kent Hovind is correct.
You hypocrite!
You have to believe this. How did any of the animals get from Arabia to the other continents if not swimming or on piles of debris? This is what we're trying to figure out. This is actually a question both of us have to answer. And if you just answer, well, God poofed them there, then you're engaging in magic. You're engaging in unscientific magic.
The duck-billed dinosaurs must have crossed hundreds of miles of open...
University of Utah researchers discovered human beards evolved to absorb punches to the head and jaw.
And my beard grow a little more.
See, again, media trying to twist the words. Researchers discovered beards are for that. No, that wasn't actually the findings. And that's not how scientists word their findings. They'll say things like, these findings were consistent with this hypothesis, or these findings support this hypothesis.
Research shows that flowing facial hair might have evolved to help fight hungry humans better absorb blows to the head.
So what evolution teaches us is that when
These dudes definitely had a few blows to the head.
we were primates, we fought so much and so hard.
No, because primates don't have as big as beards as we do. Matthew. Whoopsie. Another lie.
And hit each other in the jaw, that our jaw had to create a cushion in our face.
Wow.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
The, aside from the old man part, how many times do we have to explain that body parts don't decide to do things in response to certain pressures? They don't. He said, we got hit in the face so much that the jaw had to grow a cushion. That is not how evolution works. No. what happened, if this is actually why we have beards, is that the people who had big bushy beards could take more punches, and so they had more babies, and those babies inherited big beards. This isn't hard for someone who doesn't have literal brain damage from the mind virus that is fundamentalist Christianity. It's very, very simple. Body parts do not consciously or unconsciously design things to adapt to other things. Differences just exist via just random deviation from what's already there, and then the environment selects out by killing those who don't have advantageous traits, or those who do have advantageous traits survive and breed more. That's it. The jaw doesn't respond. Again.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson?
Folks, that is weird, okay? That's not just unscientific, okay?
What's unscientific about it? Your only argument is, haha, that's weird. Again, you have no counter whatsoever.
That is weird.
Alpha male's got
the caveman comes by.
Fortunately, no humans were slugged in the name of science.
So why not? Yeah, this isn't science. So you gotta put it to the test.
Oh, but they did put it to the test. Idiots. Let's see here. Here's the study. Let's blow this up. Okay. Here's the study. Let me read a little bit for you. We hypothesize that beards protect the skin and bones of the face when human males fight by absorbing, dispersing the energy of blunt impact. We tested this hypothesis by measuring impact force and energy absorbed by a fiber epoxy composite which served as a bone analog when it was covered with skin that had thick hair, referred to as furred, versus skin with no hair, referred to as sheared or plucked. We recovered the epoxy composite with segments of skin dissected from domestic sheep and used a drop weight impact tester affixed with a load cell to collect force versus time data. Tissue samples were prepared in 3 conditions: furred, plucked, and sheared. We found that the fully furred samples were capable of absorbing more energy than plucked and sheared samples. For example, peak force was 16% greater and total energy absorbed was 37% greater in the furred compared to the plucked samples. These differences were due in part to a longer time frame of force delivery in the furred samples. These data support the hypothesis that human beards protect vulnerable regions of the facial skeleton from damaging strikes. And let me clarify that second to last sentence there. They didn't drop the impact slower on the furred samples. The fur slowed down the impact force. Just in case anyone's wondering. So yes, they in fact did test it. It's just it's kind of medically unethical to just go punching people in the face just for some data.
Real life experiment. Hey, we'll put it to the test.
What was that? What was that about putting it to the test? We tested this hypothesis. Ooh, interesting. I wonder why these bozos didn't read the actual scientific source. I wonder why people are so scientifically illiterate.
Let my beard grow a little more. Did that hurt? Nope, I've got a beard.
They teach.
I have no idea who they are, But yeah, if you read for literally 60 seconds, it took about 10 seconds to find the study, you would find out that they did test it, and it wasn't, did that hurt?
The dinosaurs devolved into chickens. Yes, science has
Did that hurt? Nope, I've got a beard.
They teach that dinosaurs devolved into chickens. Yes, science has compelling evidence that dinosaurs evolved into chickens. Now, folks, if it's survival of the fittest, only the strongest survive in evolution theory, which one is stronger?
Oh my God. Devolved? He said T-Rex devolved into chicken. And to substantiate that, he says, which would win in a fight? Also,
now,
where the hell is this from? What is this? Where's the source for this? Here. I'll blow it up so we can see the full. What is this? This is like Yahoo Answers or something. This is, again, no scientific source from Matt Powell. No. And yeah, T-Rex did not evolve into chickens. T-Rex is a theropod coelosaurian, which are closely related to dromaeosaurs. Well, I mean, dromaeosaurs are theropod coelosaurians, and so are T-Rex. Dromaeosaurs are like a smaller variety, like Velociraptor. The fossil evidence demonstrates very clearly that Archaeopteryx and other proavians are a type of dromaeosaur with some bird-like features. Okay? If you didn't know this was Archaeopteryx, you would say it's a Velociraptor. But it's an Archaeopteryx. But it's also a dromaeosaur, which is a dinosaur. We can follow the fossil record as birds, as dromaeosaurs, become more and more bird-like. More and more like modern avians. So, birds are a subset of these theropod coelosaurian dromaeosaurs, which are dinosaurs. Chickens are one of these. Not complicated. The only differences between these are minor, tiny changes that are covered by microevolution that creationists, young Earth creationists, accept. And they accept, and these differences these micro differences separate birds from each other and birds from dromaeosaur dinosaurs. Only these micro differences. Chickens are domesticated jungle fowl, which is a very wild bird, like a very kind of primitive jungle creature. And so, yes, chickens are the closest surviving birds to dinosaurs. It's not a very difficult concept to demonstrate. And I just don't understand. Like, this has been very well documented, even by creationists, the baraminologists who are young Earth creationists, who try and study the gaps between the supposed biblical kinds. Even they had to admit that the distance between proavians and dromaeosaurs was smaller than the distance between the dromaeosaur kind, thereby making birds and dromaeosaurs the same kind. And this is, of course, represented graphically. The anatomical differences between these things are smaller than the anatomical differences within the dromaeosaur kind. And so By baraminological standards, this means that birds and dinosaurs are the same kind. At least the dromaeosaur dinosaurs. And this is why you don't hear too much about baraminology anymore, because the more fossils we discover, the more gaps we fill, and the more gaps we fill, the more that people find that the gaps between the kinds, supposed biblical kinds, are smaller than the amount of morphological diversity within the kinds. Oh, poor creationists.
It's amazing.
Folks, if it's survival of the fittest, only the strongest survive in evolution theory, which one is stronger? They say, well...
So he literally thinks that evolutionary fitness is a versus death match. Like who would win between Darth Vader and Batman? Holy fucking shitballs, Matt Powell is an actual absolute meme.
Get your shit together!
My God. No, it isn't about who would win in a versus death battle, Matthew. It's about which population can keep reproducing. Get it? It's not a one-on-one battle. Okay, so smaller things might be so small that they're able to avoid combat with a T-Rex altogether. Or so small that the T-Rex is just uninterested. It's not about fighting them like Pokemon. Okay, here's a nice analogy for you, Matt. Who would win, a great white shark or a rat? Yeah, I could give him 1,000,000 years, he would never be able to answer. Well, the answer is, it depends on the environment. Oh, precious widow Matt, I know you can at least understand that much, that a rat could beat a shark on land, both in a one-on-one fight and a population-wide breeding contest. And I'm sure anyone can understand that a shark would beat the rats in the open ocean. Isn't that interesting, Matt? It's also kind of about cooperation. I'm sure 10 billion rats in a vast ocean could probably end up beating a great white shark at some point. That's a whole nother dimension. But, yeah. So who would win if the environment was a sewer? A human or a bacteria? Bacteria all the way. Who would win in a nuclear wasteland? Human or a cockroach? You see, Matt, fitness is not about fighting each other directly, although that is one dimension. You do have to be able to contend with threats in the environment. Physical, animal threats. I'm not saying that that's not part of the analysis, but he's acting like that is what is essentially the same as fitness. It's not all about fighting each other, it's about how well your entire population can survive its habitat. But middle school level science here is probably a bit too complicated for Matty Powell here.
Well, if you have 100 or 1,000 chickens, I'm sorry, they're not going to win against their great-great-great-great-grandfather. They went...
I mean, yeah, eventually, enough chickens would. But, it's... They always like to say, oh, great-great-grandfather. Oh, freaking hilarious joke, dude. Again, all you have is the argument from incredulity. Nothing else. Just fallacies as usual.
From the largest creature that could eat you down to my favorite lunch at KFC.
They literally think evolution should be always consistently making things bigger and better at fighting bigger things. That's not how it works, though. I am
in great pain. Please help me.
Yes. Yes, thank you, bird person.
Because it was a perfect dinosaur skeleton that just had feathers on it. And now we know that there are a host of dinosaurs that were completely feathered, including Velociraptor. I'm sure you've heard of Velociraptor, right? Did you know they were fully plumed? Fully plumed, covered in...
That's very, very true, Aaron. Thank you. Yes, we have fossils, or we have feathers in the fossils, clearly visible. They have feather patterns. They're distinguishable from these other patterns that creationists like to say are, there's these other patterns that are basically leakage, and they branch out kind of like they look kind of like plants. And creationists want to say that that's the same thing as what we think the feathers are, but no, we have very feathery appendages, clearly feathers, on the appendages where feathers should be, in the patterns that they should be. They're clearly different patterns from the leakage patterns, and they're called dendrites, I think, and we actually have microscopic evidence of the structure of these feathers, and we even have microscopic evidence of what the color of the feathers are. Yes, yes.
feathers.
Like I said, if you're an evolutionist and you want to find dinosaurs, you could find living ones today.
Correct.
Here in my hand, I actually hold proof of evolution.
Yeah. Again, the argument here is, look at these chickens. They're silly and ridiculous. Okay, Matt. Thanks for the non-argument yet again.
Want to hear about dinosaurs?
Do I ever not want to hear about dinosaurs?
Turns out that, so this is a new report from British scientists, and they said that basically the dinosaurs, they also warmed the planet thanks to all the gas that they emitted from eating all the leafy plants. And in all, they emitted a total of 520 million tons per year of global methane, which is, they say, is a level comparable to the total given off today by animals and industrial activity. So they farted their way to extinction.
Let me guess. The argument is going to be farts. Evolution said farts. Isn't that a silly theory?
Literally teach that dinosaurs farted themselves to death. And then one guy says, well, Matt, you have misrepresented us.
By the way, nice fake background. You're not fooling anyone. You're still and will always be a small-time pastor. A little small-time preacher. You're never going to be a Hovind. Sorry, Matt.
We believe that they tooted and it warmed the environment. That sounds even more stupid. And that's why they died. They died from the global warming.
That sounds stupid. Look at that little smug little face. He doesn't even know how stupid he is. Oh, well, I'm sorry, Matt. I'm so sorry that this is already a proven phenomenon that animals give off greenhouse gases. And I'm sorry that dinosaurs were calculated to give off a lot of gas. And that those gases are calculated to change the weather. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that's funny to you. I mean, it is funny. Farts are funny. Doesn't really change the scientific fact that farts can affect the weather on a large enough scale.
Dinosaurs did.
I mean, have you ever seen an educational children's program that wasn't infantile, Matt? That's apparently all you consume, because you certainly aren't watching any real documentaries, and you definitely definitely aren't reading any peer-reviewed source material. All you read is like the 3-minute reads from that are pumped out by just everyday media incompetence that pump it out for clickbait.
You can't even read!
Yes, thank you, Conor McGregor.
Spark themselves into extinction. All their greenhouse gases cause climate change.
Who's this lady in a bathrobe? Why is he using clips of some random lady in a bathrobe? He doesn't even source this. I'm not cutting off anything that can't be seen in the video. He literally gives no source for this. Just some lady in a bathrobe. I mean, she's not really wrong. It's just showing the academic, the depths of the academic work and rigorousness that Matt Powell is capable of.
Which caused, you know, an ice age, and they all froze to death.
And this stuff is just crazy, but this is the crowd that wants to tell you not to keep your purity.
This is just crazy. End of argument. What a fucking loser.
To death.
And this stuff is just crazy, but this is the crowd that wants to tell you not to keep your purity. They think that they have the advice for life.
Excuse me? The apparently, evolutionary scientists are the crowd, quote unquote, that wants to tell you to not keep your purity. Fucking excuse me, Matt? Evolution nor evolutionary scientists say anything about advice for life, at least on the topic of evolution. It has nothing to do with advice for life, and it has nothing to do with keeping your purity. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to say about that. Yes, many of us enlightened individuals, like myself, question your concept of purity because it's fucking stupid. Why would the way that you, how often you have sex, or the way that you have sex, what does that have to do with purity exactly? Because you're fine with the exact same act, sex, as long as someone performs a magic ritual in a church to put a ring on your finger. Same act, but it's somehow pure now because of the ritual. Oh, but you don't have magical thinking. Anyway, yeah, there's nothing in the sciences telling you to lose your precious virginity, Matthew. Keep your dick locked up in a little chastity box for all I give a fuck. But that's not evolution. Half the biologists are Christians anyway, liar. Has nothing to say. Absolutely nothing. Biology has nothing to say about where you stick your dick, or about what you put in your vagina, or your butthole, or any of those holes.
They don't have the advice for life. Just last month, a rock fell from the sky, and they said, "There's the answer. It has the ingredients for life. There's the..."
Hold on. So now he's equivocating the answer to why there's life with the answers to the meaning of life, and he's equivocating that to finding ingredients for life. Wow, so he can't tell the difference between some amino acids and other bioorganic chemicals and the origins for life and the meaning of life. He can't tell the difference between any of those things because, no, a meteorite containing some of the basic organic chemicals is not going to tell us how life formed, how life began, and it's not going to tell us the meaning of life either. What a fucking moron.
The answer. That's lazy science. A rock falls from the sky.
What is the science exactly? What is the conclusion being drawn? that because a rock fell from the sky, that evolution gives you life advice? Or that because we found some organic chemicals that were created in nature, that we suddenly know how a biogenesis life started?
On somebody's driveway, and they say, well, it contained the ingredients though, Matt. Okay,
yeah, that's kind of important to know that the ingredients are naturally occurring. It doesn't tell us how they're assembled.
Big deal. I could put a frog in a blender, blend it up. That is all the ingredients for life.
Yeah, exactly. So if you came across the ingredients for life in nature, then you know you don't need a god to create the ingredients for life. We still haven't gotten to how the ingredients get put together, but Matt Powell is such a fucking moron that he doesn't know the difference. Or he's being deliberately dishonest. There's really no way of telling with these people.
But I don't expect the frog to put itself back together and start hopping around again.
Nor does anyone expect life to just pop out of these meteorites. Notice how literally no one is claiming that life is coming out of the meteorites. Oh my God, Matt.
Today is going to be another first for the response list. Today, we're going to be responding to a 22-year-old pastor.
Yeah, it's pathetic, isn't it? What a waste of life.
Named Matt Powell. There is no logic at all into believing that one day God just decided to poof us into existence.
Correct. In the most technical, most literal, most rigorously academic way, there is absolutely no logic in believing that.
This one atheist responded to me recently. He's like, there's no logic at all into believing that one day God just magically poofed us into existence.
Correct, because all of your arguments rely on logical fallacies. Therefore, that belief is illogical, which means there is no logic to it.
Isn't that what the Big Bang teaches?
No, not even remotely. The Big Bang is an expansion of existing matter and material. Nothing was created during the Big Bang except maybe some space. All the matter was already there.
It was a poof.
Poof. Poof. Yep. That's science, right?
So let me ask you, because they say, well, you Christians believe in magic. Okay, what's magical? Somebody creating the universe or matter and energy creating itself from nothing?
Both, which is why no scientists actually say matter and energy came from literal nothing. And yeah, a magic man existing for no reason, poofing himself and the universe into existence from nothing. This is actually what you believe, Matt. You believe God created everything from nothing. That's what you believe. Magically. Now, it might make more sense to you, but it is magic nonetheless. It is a supernatural power, which is magic. You can't describe the mechanism God used to make it, can you? And you're going to say it wasn't mechanistic. It was the result of his mind. Wow. Wow.
Liar! Funny, you said earlier they can't think for themselves. Buddy, you are 22 years old. Buddy, if there's anyone that doesn't think for themselves, I would say that it's freaking you.
That guy's making great points.
We evolved from monkeys. Why are there still monkeys?
A very, very common stupid belief held by lots of people who don't understand evolution. I guess the question isn't so much a belief as much as it's based on a misinterpretation, a bad belief about what evolution is.
Well, because we're not monkeys. We're fish.
Half true. We are monkeys and we are fish. But he's talking about we aren't the monkeys that still exist. So, I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into TED Talks as rigorous scientific sources. Again, that is why Matt has to either take things out of context or use randos or untrained clickbait media sources or TED Talk lectures that are dumbed down for lay people.
Now, knowing you're a fish and not a monkey is actually really important to understanding where we came from.
People
Fish and monkey.
that take and consider this, they don't think about what they're even being told, that they evolved from a sponge, or that we all evolved from literal jellyfish.
First of all, we did not evolve from a sponge or a literal jellyfish. Work on your lisp, buddy. It's a little embarrassing your God couldn't fix that for you. I mean, not to hate on the lispers out there, but god damn. If God wanted Matt to be a preacher, I mean, it's just too ironic. So, but yes, we did not evolve from sponges or literal jellyfish. Actually, we might have evolved from sponges, but definitely not literal jellyfish. But again, nothing wrong with understanding that single cells can group up to create multicellular masses, sort of like a sponge, and then those sponges can create certain shapes, and then those, like a funnel, and then that funnel might develop cell differentiation and then detach itself from a rock. And then it's like a little mobile sponge. And then maybe it has more cell differentiation and it can kind of contract. And then it becomes kind of like a sea cucumber. And then its muscles get a little better. And it can kind of move from side to side. And all of a sudden, and you can get it smaller and denser and compact. That funnel shape, and you got kind of a worm-like thing, and then maybe it gets a little better at swimming. Maybe its tail flattens a little bit, and its mouth gets a little bigger. Then you have like an eel-type fish thing, and then some of its skin cells are sensitive to light, and over time, nerve connections allow the thing to sense where the light is. And over time, the flat parts of its tail and flat parts of its belly start to become more integrated and better controlled, and you have yourself like a proto-fish. And then some of the cells start to harden. And then from there you can make teeth. And then you can change the shape of those teeth, and you get jaws, and you get whole skeletons. And it's interesting how the entire life history of fish shows that the most hardened, the most skeleton, starts in the head and around the jaw area. So then you start getting more muscle in the fins, and you start getting organ differentiation. And the organs, one of the organs that has air in it can absorb oxygen naturally because there's air in it. A swim bladder. Then you start to see, well, some fish get better at absorbing oxygen from their swim bladder. And some of those fish get really strong fins, and so they can actually crawl up onto land. And then some of those fish that can crawl up onto land can stay up onto land. because their swim bladder became a lung, because it can absorb better oxygen. And you start seeing those populations, some of them can stay on land longer and longer and longer. See, at no point in this entire thing that I've narrated has there been a new kind. It's all micro changes to existing traits. So, if you have fish that can stay on land longer and longer and longer, eventually you're going to have an animal that just needs to dip in the water occasionally, aka an amphibian. And they have raised fish that have lived their entire lives on land. They just need a little bit of water every once in a while, you know, kind of like frogs and salamanders. And then you're going to have frogs and salamanders that evolve thick skin. And so you're going to get toads and lizards. And from lizards, we know that scales can evolve into feathers and hairs. And so a rat is basically just a hairy lizard. And a lemur is basically just a tree climbing rat. And a monkey is basically just a different kind of lemur. And an ape is basically just a big monkey without a tail. And a human is basically just a hairless ape. So yeah, we are fish and monkeys, all with micro changes to existing traits. All of it microevolution. Every step of the way. And what's funny is the entire fossil record and all of the dating methods, they all conform to the same timeline. Just miraculously, just totally coincidentally.
That's what evolution teaches, is that we evolved from jellyfish.
It does not. It teaches there's from jellyfish like animals, but even then, let's accept that. What's the problem there? A jellyfish could become a worm type thing. There's absolutely no problem. And again, his entire argument is jellyfish? That's crazy. That's silly. That's it.
I always like to ask people, do you think that your ancient ancestor was a fish?
So researchers have a hypothesis. This isn't a fact of evolution, just a hypothesis that we may have be descended from comb jellies, which are not literal jellyfish. Comb jellies are in the phylum, a completely different phylum from the true jellyfish. Okay? The box jelly are Ctenophora, whereas jellyfish are Medusozoa. Completely different phylum. So, does it surprise anyone that Matt here is not actually going to the source and is just quoting, again, media schlock? Does it surprise anyone that Matt is just a big, giant, fat liar? I don't think it should.
You know, it's like the incredible Mr. Limpet 2.0. I wish I were a fish. Well, according to them, we were fish millions of years ago.
Correct.
Many of us were taught evolution wrong. You and I are fish. One fish lineage came onto land and gave rise to, among other things, the mammals and reptiles. Perhaps it's better still to think of us as a little fish out of water.
Yeah, nothing very complicated about a fish that can breathe and walk on land, which we know exists. Developing harder scales, stronger legs, better lungs, and changing the shape of its skeleton, which we also know fish can do, and developing long, thin scales instead of short, flat scales. That gets you mammals, pretty much. Holy crap. Yes, I do love this quote because it can be applied to literally anything. Does Matt not profess himself to be wise? Does God not profess himself to be wise? You can use this quote to kind of shit on anyone who's basically going around saying that they're wise. Yeah, Matt's professing himself to be wise, and he is a fool. The absolute irony.
Evolutionists claim, it says, one plausible explanation, in our view, is that the genes are likely new extraterrestrial imports to Earth. These scientists declare that, quote, the squid eggs hitched a ride to Earth on the back of asteroids. That is what evolution teaches, folks.
Are you serious?
Liar!
Liar! Liar! Liar!
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
Yes. Color me shocked, but again, Matt is lying. Let's see what the scientists actually said about this. Should we play a little bit more, actually?
I am not kidding. I was in an interview with a friend of mine he's an actual creation scientist. Now, him and I don't see eye to eye on everything, but he brought this up and I thought he was joking with me. I said, are you serious? We cut for a moment. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is what they teach? He said, yeah, it's what they teach. I looked it up. Sure enough, evolution teaches that they hitched a ride on the back of asteroids. Doesn't
You know, it's amazing. You are 100% wrong. I mean, nothing you've said has been right.
Yep.
You're not very bright, are you?
Let's look at the actual science. What did they actually say? The cause of the Cambrian explosion, terrestrial cosmic. This is a speculative paper. One particular focus are the recent studies which state the emergence of complex retroviruses of vertebrate lines at or just before the Cambrian explosion of about 500 million years ago. Such viruses are known to be plausibly associated with major evolutionary genomic processes. We believe this coincidence is not fortuitous, but is consistent with a key prediction of the HW theory, whereby major extinction, diversification, evolutionary boundaries coincide with virus-bearing cometary bolide bombardment events. So, long story short, viruses may have hitched a ride on comets. And yes, they even say bacteria, viruses, more complex eukaryotic cells, fertilized ova, and seeds may have been delivered. Life may have been seeded here and allowed it to flourish. So they're not saying it did happen. This isn't being taught by evolution, and it's not being taught in evolution classes or anything. This is just one speculative paper. And let's see, in this very same paper, they say, such an extraterrestrial origin as an explanation of emergence, of course, runs counter to the prevailing dominant paradigm. So in this paper that Matt did not bother to read, the authors admit that this is not the consensus in evolution. So this is not being taught by evolution. It's not held by the majority of evolutionists. If you want to call them evolutionists, this is not a part of evolutionary theory. This is not accepted as an event in life history at all, in any way. And other scientists have said many of the claims in this paper are beyond speculative and not even really looking into the literature. This is why you have to read, Matt, which we already know.
You can't even read!
Very frustrating. Very frustrating, you guys. So, I guess let's continue.
That sounds fun. And they don't get along anyways. Squids and octopuses are constantly fighting each other, so I don't know how they made it here to begin with.
Well, if you read, it talks about their eggs or viruses or bacteria containing some genes that they could transfer to existing animals on Earth. And yes, all of those things are shown to be able to survive being frozen. So, conceptually, it is plausible, but no one accepts it in academia. Counter to your lie.
But of course they were eggs, and the article goes on to say that they were, they were fertilized. They don't know how, but they were fertilized.
Holy shit. They weren't grown out of the rock, Matt. If there were eggs on an asteroid, it means that there were animals living on some planet or something somewhere. They laid eggs, then somehow an explosion, an impact threw off a rock that had in it contained eggs, which were frozen in space, or they were already frozen somewhere and an impact threw off a rock that contained them.
Fertilized so that they could hatch when they hit the water.
Yeah, we can freeze and unfreeze eggs. That's a thing. And bacteria and viruses. Oh,
Do you
boy.
really believe that something came from nothing?
Yes.
An out of context clip, and
Because there are laws, such as gravity, the universe can, and will, create itself from nothing.
They always accuse us.
more out of context clips. I'm sure even dumbass Matt, King Moron, knows that it's been repeated ad nauseum, over and over and over and over and over again, that when we say nothing, we're not talking about absolute nothing. At least, like the physicists, there are virtual particles and things and quantum fluctuations in the quote-unquote nothingness. That's why I always use the term absolute nothing. And yes, they do qualify that, because that would be a void, from our perspective, would be nothingness. And he knows he's strawmanning.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson?
I can't tell you how fucking much this is so awful.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
As Christians, they say, well, that book you've got right there, that's magic.
Yes, supernatural powers is magic.
That's a magic book. No, you know what's magical? Saying that the universe came from nothing. What?
Yeah, and when you cherry pick those quotes of people saying that, that's not what they're saying. Dumbass. It's very clear there are entire books written on this. How nothingness doesn't actually mean absolute nothingness. But, again, you hypocrite! You believe this. You believe everything came from nothing because God sneezed it out, because he thought about it magically.
What's magical, folks?
I just love how magic, he's clearly bothered by this concept of magic, because he knows that supernatural powers are a ridiculous explanation, but he somehow has to say that his supernatural powered God is not magical.
God creating the universe, or time, space, and matter poofing into existence from nothing? What if I said a giant boulder popped into existence right in the middle of this auditorium?
It would just be, it would be an act of God. You'd believe it? There are just a few reasons why you should quit believing in evolution and start believing in creation. God bless, guys. He didn't give any reasons. Not one. All he did was say, that's silly. Next. And that's just a few reasons you should never believe young Earth creationism, and why you should always mock Matt Powell. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for this Sunday. I know it's going to be out late this Sunday, but what are you going to do? Anyway, thanks for coming. Dog bless.